All right, everyone. CNN did everything that it could to make Elizabeth Warren look good during the last debate. It's very hard for her to look good on her own because basically she just takes talking points from Biden and Sanders, rehashes them a little bit, and what she tends to do is she gets so verbose she doesn't allow any time for anyone else to challenge her, and that seems to be her strategy because she's not actually a progressive leftist. She's also not a capitalist. She's just a corporate socialist. Just like many other Democrats are. She wants to keep ramming, a stump up the ass of the country and pretending like other people are responsible for our problems, when really it's the government. The government's gotten in the way of private industry long enough, and it's beginning to grind down the economy. The government causes a lot of wars and panders with corporations, and it's basically a modern era carpetbagging. They're going to try to sell us a modern progressive era. It'll be just as shitty as the first one. Ultimately, what they should have done is eliminate the carpetbagging that was causing monopolization, but nobody thought to do that. It's hard. It's difficult when you tell people that the problems you're facing are complex. It's much easier to just say plutocrat bad and say government will help you. It's much more easily boiled down. People prefer very simplistic and usually wrong solutions to things. It becomes a problem. It's funny because Yang goes in the other direction. He can't get any traction because he's trying to explain everything in minutia. It just doesn't work. He should drop out too. I realize that the Yang Gang thing is like a funny meme. And there are a lot of people who both unironically and ironically support him, but it's not going to happen because people don't have enough of an attention span to listen to his shitty plans anyway. So I wasn't surprised when Tulsi Gabbard was cut off when she started in on Warren. This was what I expected to happen. First, it looked like they were going to keep Tulsi out of the debate. Then she inexplicably cracked 2% in a couple of polls. The Dems said, fuck, okay, we'll let her in. But they did their best to keep her from speaking and to distract her. Like, even before the show even began, the anchors that would be covering the debate from afar anyway were talking about how she was a Russian puppet. Yes, totally unbiased, by the way. She's a friend of Assad and Putin. This from the same network hosting the debate. But it'll be fair, everyone. Don't worry about it. This just goes to show the Veritas releases are absolutely true. Yeah, Jeff Zucker likes Elizabeth Warren. And he kind of likes Joe Biden and has a little bit of a thing for Kamala Harris, I suppose. And had donated to her or something like that. Not a surprise. But Tulsi Gabbard is the one that they don't like. It's not that they fear her becoming the nominee. They fear her taking Warren out. Because she already did to Kamala. You see, if somebody who's male attacks Elizabeth Warren, they'll get called a sexist, both by Warren's fans and by a lot of the other people on the left. This is why the Bernie bros have so many problems trying to establish Bernie Sanders as the progressive candidate, the alternative to Joe Biden. Whereas Elizabeth Warren, who's not even progressive, she has an easy time of it because she can hide behind her gender, and she's tried to hide behind her non-existent Native American heritage. This has become dead weight for her, which I think fucks her in the general election. By the way, the Democrats are already trying to inject sex as an issue into the campaign, with Donald Trump saying that Pelosi was becoming unhinged because she started rambling at him and pointing her finger at him during a meeting. Then she, for some reason, thinks this is a badge of pride. Like, the Democrats are going to say that Trump is frenzied and confused and unhinged, and yet she's making this her banner image on Twitter. I'm not sure how well that's going to play out. I think that he did that very, very purposefully. I think that he expected her to take the bait, and she did. I don't expect good things to come of it for Pelosi. With Elizabeth Warren, though, what happened is Tulsi Gabbard came out at the debate, and this was the only moment that was noteworthy, was she came out and started saying, well, I think we should question people on their records and their ability to run against Trump, which is kind of the point. Beating Trump is the whole fucking goal of the Democratic Party. Instead, they're trashing each other, rambling about impeachment from afar, and that's all they're doing. Pelosi now delaying an impeachment vote. Well, you've got an active inquiry going, but you're not going to have an impeachment vote? But I thought you were so sure Orange Man bad. I thought you were so sure you had caught him with his hands in the cookie jar committing a major crime or something that you could remove him from office for, but you don't want to hold the impeachment vote. How very, very fitting. How coincidental. And how convenient for the House Democrats when they realized the Ukraine thing was going to blow up in their faces. So she started in saying, well, I'd like to ask people about their ability to run against Trump, and I'd like to start with Elizabeth Warren. And the second that the first syllable of Warren came out of her mouth. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have time for that right now. No, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Tulsi Gabbard spoke for, I think, a full 8 minutes less than Elizabeth Warren at the debate. They heavily weighted things in favor of Warren, way out in front. Several minutes more than Bernie Sanders or Biden spoke, more than some of the lower tier candidates combined. Now, nobody wants to hear Steyer ramble for 5 minutes about the need to fix our rail lines or whatever he's about. Nobody even fucking knows. Nobody cares for that. However, if you have somebody who has been openly antagonized by your own network, trying to ask people the perfectly legitimate question of what their qualifications for, how your track record stacks up against one another's, that's not a great time to move things along, because for the most part, the rest of the debate boiled down to the generic thing we've seen at all the others, which is orange man bad, and we want socialism. Socialize this, socialize that, free shit. By the way, I'm not going to tell you how to pay for this. Warren has done it. Bernie Sanders has done it. Biden, the only other person who's called this out, is so incoherent and old at this point, he can't even do an effective job. Biden tries to make arguably very valid points. He can't even get 3 syllables out without making a mistake. Some moderate standard bearer for the party, when you've got Elizabeth Warren as your front runner after the 4th debate, only because Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders both have health issues? Like, if Biden were to collapse tomorrow, I think that the natural order would be that Bernie Sanders would take up most of those votes, because obviously some of them are anti-Warren voters. I think people would prefer, even if he's nutty, at least someone who's been honest about the fact that he's nuts consistently for half a century. Over the last half a century, Bernie Sanders has never once deviated from telling people his platform. He's unabashed about it. He doesn't care. He's from Vermont. He gets perennially reelected anyway. Elizabeth Warren has consistently lied about her marriage, about her ethnicity, and about virtually every aspect of her personal, not just professional life. As well as straight up lying to the American people, saying somehow, magically, she can make the numbers add up in a way no other person in the world can do, and she will not have to raise middle-class taxes to pay for all of Bernie Sanders-style programs that she grifted off of his campaign. Tulsi Gabbard would have gone roughshod over her. CNN smelled the blood and cut her off to limit the damage that she could do. That's basically what happened, because they saw what she did to Kamala Harris. She was already on her way down, and, I had already said several days before not to expect her to rise back up, because that doesn't tend to happen within these races. But it certainly didn't help Kamala Harris, and now she's been slamma-jammed again with the loss of AOC's endorsement. Oh, she could have really used that. Would have been funnier if they had endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, for all of her faults, like, not believing in the Second Amendment comes to mind, being basically orange man bad light comes to mind, at the very least has more strategic intelligence than most of these people. At the very least, she can't be all bad considering the amount of wall of propaganda-style coverage of her supposed Assad ties comes out on a day-to-day basis before these debates. They just can't stop reminding people that she doesn't want to kill Assad off and met with Putin once, and this is somehow like headline news. Tulsi Gabbard is on page 1, but only right before a debate, and then only to point out, by the way, Putin, orange man bad, haha, she's running interference for Trump. That's the insinuation. They want Elizabeth Warren, it's quite clear. They've found the candidate they think can do it. Bernie Sanders is too authentically far left and old. Biden is falling apart. Buttigieg has never gained any traction. He probably already had a mild peak early on in the race. He's been sliding since then. He gains a little bit because Kamala falls out of existence. Kamala's done. Who does that leave? There's only one person left who has double-digit support, and that's Elizabeth Warren. Even if the field were to clear out right now and the whole bottom half dropped out, nobody would be at her numbers. She'd probably absorb more than Biden would. She'd probably still, by a little margin, be the front runner. Hell, Biden has to run up into the 30s to grab 2 of the first starting states. Elizabeth Warren's probably ahead now in Iowa and Nevada. So what's he going to do to stop her? You're going to need Bernie Sanders to drop it. You'd need Bernie Sanders to say, well, Warren's not an authentic progressive. At least with Biden, we know he worked with Obama. So we'll take the half-assed liberalism for 4 more years and endorse him or something. That's what you'd have to do. And that could, by the way, happen. It's going to be a brokered shit show of a convention. The Democratic convention, by the way, this year will be just as messy as it was back in the 60s when 500,000 hippies showed up to protest. It'll be that messy, probably. Thank goodness. It'll at least, finally, the Democrats will be interesting to watch for something other than nonstop political scandals and sliminess, like shutting up Tulsi Gabbard the moment that she was going to take down their golden girl. That's about all. Peace out.